Good morning, everyone. It's Sunday, June 28th. Boston City Councilor Andrea Campbell is our guest this morning. Let's go on the record. She's made it clear that the time for police reform is now. Can she, in the most diverse city council in Boston history, make that happen? Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR for this Sunday morning. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Wu. We are in, as you know, phase two, stage two of the state's reopening from the coronavirus pandemic, and we do continue to respect social distancing protocols here at News Center 5. So we're in the studio, we're separated. We're joined this morning by Boston City Councilor Andrea Campbell. She joins us this morning from her house. She holds the distinction of being the first black woman to serve as a city council president. She represents District 4, which includes parts of Dorchester, Mattapan, JP, and Roslindale. It's great to have you with us, Andrea. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning, Councilor, and thank you also for joining us on this Sunday morning. You lost a pivotal battle over Mayor Marty Walsh's budget this past week. On a vote of 8-5, your side failed to get further cuts in the police budget. Does it mean that you'll lose the war for any police reform the mayor doesn't endorse?
Absolutely not. While I was disappointed that the budget passed, I wanted a budget, of course, that did more to address systemic inequities in the city of Boston and to truly make Boston the the leader in equity and race as the mayor wants the city to be. So that was one opportunity, I think, and we sort of missed some key investments there. But the work continues in terms of reforms, not just with policing, but also education and health disparities. And I'm going to continue to push on those reforms. We've gotten some of those things done, but there's a lot more to do.
But are you going to have to try to convince at least 2 more city councilors to vote with the group of 5 that voted against the mayor's budget this past week?
Well, there's definitely, even though the budget went down, and again, I was disappointed by that, there's definitely an appetite by all councilors to make sure that reforms continue to happen. So in terms of policing, there's a lot more we can do in terms of transparency. There's still a lot of data on traffic stops, stop and frisk data, which I just had to subpoena from our department, data related to our budget numbers, diversity numbers that we could make public to really get a sense of the problems within our department. We haven't done that yet. I know my council colleagues support that. Civilian Review Board to make our department more accountable. I know my colleagues also support that. So there are many reforms still on the table that I think will happen even if the budget didn't pass.
You mentioned this just a few minutes ago, but let's drill down a little further. The mayor also announced this week a new Boston Racial Equity Fund. So does that actually give you confidence that more money will be available to address the long-term neglected problems?
I mean, I've always said that when folks say we don't have the resources to put forth a solution to get at solving an inequity, I don't buy it. We are a very wealthy city. We have the private sector, nonprofit sector, philanthropy, all willing to come to the table to put forth resources and human capital to solve our problems with respect to inequities. So I'm happy with the fund, but I was disappointed in that one of the reasons the budget didn't pass was there was a suggestion that resources were limited or possibly, city employees would lose their jobs. And I said, we can do this in such a way that no city employee will lose their job. Instead, let's go back to the table to ensure that we have more of a plan with respect to health inequities, educational inequities, and policing reform. And if we don't have the money in our city budget, well, let's go to these other sources. So that announcement was made the next day, and I was a little disappointed because that was one of the arguments I made with respect to going back to the table. So I think the fund is a good idea, but leadership has to start with the city in terms of setting the plan, the goal with respect to closing gaps, and we have to do more with that.
Let me ask you, just and I understand this is more philosophical than literal, but is this an issue that money can solve?
Money is just one piece of it. There has to be an intentionality. There has to be action. We have an incredible executive order that says, every department in the city of Boston should undergo a racial equity training. When we do our budget analysis, we should look at every department through a racial equity lens. That executive order was signed in January of 2019. That has yet to be actualized. So we can sign executive orders, we can put forth money and ideas, but we have to have intentionality and action in the residents, in our colleagues have to hold us accountable to what we say we're going to do. So we've been saying this for some time. I will tell you, with COVID-19 devastating my district, which is predominantly a district of color, if we had done the hard work of working on resiliency, funding that office, putting human capital there, I think those communities that are less resilient would have been more resilient in the face of this pandemic. So action and intentionality coupled with human capital and resources, all critical.
You recently created quite a stir with a tweet following a private meeting between Attorney General William Barr and Boston Police Commissioner William Gross. It said, quote, "Defund whatever the hell this is." What were you saying?
So I want to be crystal clear. I do have a good relationship with Commissioner Gross. I chair the Committee on Public Safety, and I started that work when I was a first-term counselor. And he is the first Black commissioner in the city of Boston, and I do not like to sort of be at odds with him in a public space. That being said, I've told him in a meeting with the mayor as well as Commissioner Gross that I am going to push for reforms to make sure the department, even if it's excellent, can be better, and that he may not always like those things. And so when I saw the image of this Attorney General in particular, why I was disappointed is I am pushing for reforms along with a lot of advocacy organizations, Lawyers for Civil Rights, the ACLU, many others, and I know that they have had trouble meeting with our commissioner. And so when I saw this particular meeting, it was disappointing because my community, predominantly a community of color, immigrant community. I'm also a lawyer. I know lawyers who are on the front lines of fighting to bring back the integrity to the Justice Department. And so I thought this meeting in particular was a way to make Boston not look good. And I thought they played our commissioner, and I didn't appreciate that. And so I want to be clear. I look forward to continuing to work with our commissioner, but I think imagery matters, particularly in a time like this. And so I would have chosen a different meeting. You heard his reasons for the meeting. Do you think his mistake was having the meeting with Attorney General Barr or agreeing to have that picture taken, which now can be used by the Trump administration if they so choose to do so? The meeting, the imagery, everything. If that Attorney General wanted to know more about our policing, et cetera, fine. Call them on the phone. But in terms of actual meetings, there's a long list of folks that want to meet with our police commissioner who have actionable ideas, good ideas that will bring us together as a city and move forward meaningful reforms in terms of policing. And those organizations have yet to get a meeting. So I just was really disappointed to see that those organizations would not be sort of allowed to have a meeting, but Attorney General Barr would, when it is abundantly clear to so many that his intentions are not good intentions with respect to our laws, our Justice Department, and our city.
Governor Baker's budget calls for $5,000 in incentives to police officers who take racial sensitivity training classes. Is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea? In your opinion, it's what kind of an idea?
So one of the reforms I'm pushing is absolutely training, and not just implicit bias training, but anti-racist and racial equity training. I not only think law enforcement should go through it, I think anyone who works in government or any institution should go through it. If you want to put forth policies that don't perpetuate inequities, you need to understand terms like race, structural racism, et cetera. I do not think you should have to pay people to go through that training. It is serious enough that when we look at George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others, those lives were taken because people devalue the life of Black people. And that's comes from the history of this country. When Black people were 3/5 of a human being, slavery, all of that we don't necessarily want to talk about, that sort of still shows up in many ways. It's an uncomfortable history, but if we want to move forward, we have to talk about it. And I do not think you should have to pay someone to be able to have that conversation and to do their work in a better way.
I'd like to talk about something that's been happening just about every night. Fireworks are exploding in urban areas. They're becoming almost nightly major events. While they disturb many folks that are already stressed out trying to sleep, others see them as celebrations of protests finally gaining traction. Where do you stand on this?
I don't know about a celebration of protests. I live in Mattapan. They go off quite frequently. I have a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old, and I'm attempting to do work, and they're often on, go till 3 or 4 in the morning. And so we've been creative in that If we see our neighbors or folks on the street doing it, it's like, excuse me, can you stop? And then in certain locations, police have had to come out in parks and various locations to be proactive in saying, you know, you're creating a nuisance, or it's a public safety hazard. We've had some houses catch on fire because of fireworks. So this is major. I've been pushing the mayor to do a little bit more, and I do think we need to do more on a public announcement front to say, it's a public safety hazard. People can die. Fires have already happened. People have lost their homes. So we have to be extremely careful. And we have to remind folks it's technically illegal here in Massachusetts. And so I do think we need to do more on the public announcement piece. And there's other ways to protest without putting people's lives at risk.